All right, so we're going to go ahead and hop into 403. In 403, we're going to do some cool things. We're actually going to end up with our interface completed and ready for us to start adding some dynamic content and actually using that login in 404 and really just laying down the foundation, the final foundation of our application. So up to this point, when we log in, we were getting the we are in. Now when we log in, we actually get our application, and we're learning. Our primary focus is to learn about event listeners in this lesson. And before we move on to discussing that a little bit, what we're going to talk about real quick is why we break down the header and the footer and the sidebar and the content area. We actually break that down into different functions. And the reason that we're doing that is throughout the life cycle of the application, these different areas will grow differently and have different conditions and be used for different pieces of information. And this will allow us to dynamically update the content and manage it more efficiently, more effectively, with better security. So one of the primary things about this lesson that we're moving into is event listeners. So any good web application, JavaScript is really what gives it its true power is the ability to leverage the events, meaning anything that happens right now, the mouse moving around on the page like this is an event in the background. It's actually letting the browser know and everything know that, hey, the mouse is moving here or moving there. That's a hover event. So when I hover over that, it's letting it know that something's happening. When I click on it, it's letting it know. And there is a specific science, we'll say, to understanding events. And once you understand how events work, you can leverage them better and truly build some cool things in your application. So the first thing we're learning in this lesson is essentially about the events themselves. What are events and what are event handlers? And we get into discussing that and how we leverage the BOM and the DOM to capture those events. The other thing we're introduced to in this lesson is just a couple of the many different, we call them web APIs or interfaces, right? And so these are small parts of the browser that do specific things for specific areas in the browser. And what we're looking at in this lesson is the HTML element interface, the document interface, and the window interface. So essentially going over how we end up with targets, event targets, and things like that. Then what we'll further move along onto is how we capture them and what is propagation and what is bubbling and how does bubbling work. And every time an event happens, its parents and its ancestors, meaning the elements that it's nested inside of above it all the way up to the window, are aware of the event taking place. And there are different things that we can do by leveraging those opportunities, and we get into talking about the capture phase, the target phase, and the bubbling phase. We can see that our capture phase is basically it's watching for the event. The target is the element that the event has taken place on, and then it actually bubbles back up to the window again, letting it know that that event has happened. If we look at the different tools that are put together here for us in the lesson, we can actually start to gain a better understanding by seeing what exactly these events are doing for us. After that, we move on to building our application interface, and we end up with our application actually starting to take form and really look like an application and open us up to do some pretty cool stuff in future steps. So I hope you enjoyed this step, and we'll see you in the next video where we get started.